Okay, for the afternoon session for 1 hour, we're going to be basing whatever I'm saying on the suttas. These are the teachings of the Buddha, recorded many centuries ago, actually 2,500 years ago. And so there's some authenticity here that what you're hearing is actually what the Buddha actually taught. Not only that, but you'll find that the Buddha never spoke in Cantonese, nor in English, spoke in Pali. So this is a translation. And the translation which I did is pretty authoritative, but it takes off much of the repetition. If many people read the suttas for yourself, the Pali Theravada suttas, you'd find it repeats things so often, and after a while it turns people off. So I followed a way of translating, which was suggested by Professor A.K. Warder. And the reason why he suggests, it makes a lot of sense. The unit of language is never a word, but a sentence. So you never do a word-for-word translation. If you do, you get these stupid translations of little books. I wandered lonely as a cloud, said William Wordsworth. Does that mean he could levitate? Or the statement in English, it was raining cats and dogs. Does that mean that these little furry animals were falling out of the sky? And you can see that's what happens when you do word-for-word translations. It's much better to do sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase. And I have followed his advice as accurately as I possibly can. So now we have the word of the Buddha. If I can get my thing working. Okay. And then, oops, come on, where are you going? So I'm just going to be starting off with the Ānā-Pain-nasati. Excellent. No, it's, you can actually go a bit, that's satipaṭṭhāna. See if I can get, I'll just get the mindfulness, it should be further down on that. Yeah, I have to find the page number. I've only got 2 hands, so I'm going to put the microphone down. Even though I did a keynote address at the World Computer Conference, I am pretty hopeless on this. Now, this is from the Ānāpānasati Sutta, Majjhima 118. And the reason I like this version is because what it says at the very beginning. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it completes the 4 focuses of mindfulness. What are the 4 focuses of mindfulness? What's the usual way of saying the 4 focuses of mindfulness? The 4 satipaṭṭhāna. I call it focuses of mindfulness instead of foundations of mindfulness, because this is where the mindfulness is focused on. So when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it completes the 4 focuses of mindfulness, the 4 satipaṭṭhāna. When the 4 focuses of mindfulness are developed and cultivated, they complete the 7 enlightenment factors. When the 7 enlightenment factors are developed and cultivated, they complete true knowledge and deliverance, enlightenment. So that is just the summary at the very beginning to say what the Buddha is going to be talking about. And then he starts to explain. And how does mindfulness of breathing, developed and cultivated, complete the 4 focuses of mindfulness? Now, when you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, You never see those numbers in the suttas. I add that easier to understand. When the in-breath and out-breath are long, and you are aware that they are long, when the in-breath and out-breath are short, and you are aware that they are short, when you learn to experience the whole of the breath as you breathe in and out, when you learn to calm the breath as you breathe in and out, on these occasions you are mindful of the body, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose, and mindful. In and out breathing is regarded by the Buddha as a body in the categories, bodies. That is why on that occasion a meditator abides mindful of the body, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose, and mindful. And there's a few important points which I should emphasize here. You know, in English, I'd usually say there's a few points I'd like to stress, but I don't like that word because people think that meditation should be without any stress. So I'd use emphasize instead. First of all, you can actually see the 4 first factors of Ānā-Pain-nasati. Sometimes you may read it in the word for word translation. When breathing in a long breath, you are aware that you are breathing in a long breath. When you are breathing in a short breath, you are aware that you're breathing in a short breath. When breathing out a long breath, you are aware that you're breathing out a long breath. And already I'll get confused and not quite sure what the next one should be, because it gets complicated when you keep repeating yourself so much. That's why I preferred when the in-breath and out-breath are long, you are aware that they are long. It's exactly the same meaning as in the text, but by abbreviating it, by speaking it as a normal person would speak it rather than a word-for-word translation, it's far more clear. And the third, the in-breath and out-breath are short. The next one, when you learn to experience the whole of the breath as you breathe in and out. The word is, they call it the body of the breath, but what is the body of the breath? It means the whole breath. And if you want to look at me for a moment to explain it very clearly what it means, you can see a breath going in, see a breath going out, long or short. But that third factor, you see the whole of the breath. It's not just seeing it long or short. You see it from the very beginning right to the end. You see the whole of the breath. And you see it go out, the whole of the breath go out. That is the meaning of the third stage of this Ānāpānasati. You know the breath going in, know the breath going out, short or long. Now you know more than that. You can see all the breath. Sabakaya, the whole body of the breath. And last, when you learn to calm the breath as you go in and out, as the breath comes in and out. How do you learn to calm the breath as the breath goes in and goes out? Please remember that you are being mindful of the breath. You'll be able to know whether the breath is calm or whether it's agitated. So how do you actually calm the breath? You do this because you're mindful. Anytime you're mindful of anything in your body or anywhere else, you get feedback. You know what it felt like a moment ago. You know what it feels like now. You know what you need to do to keep it calm and to make it more calm. You learn how to make it agitated if you want to do that. What causes agitation? And a lot of times when you start meditating, it is learning by trial and error. You'll find if you try to calm the breath, no matter how you try to calm it, you will make it worse and more agitated. And you will soon find that the only way to effectively calm the breath is the same way as calming the glass of water, putting it down, leaving it alone, and relaxing to the max. Because you're not doing anything, your metabolism goes down. You're not thinking, you're not striving, you're not doing anything. You don't need so much breath. Your need for oxygen gets less and less. And that is why the breath calms down. Not by doing things, but by the opposite, not doing things. I know this is a little bit of a digression, but when I was a monk in Thailand and we had to sit in the jungles in the evening, there was no hall and there was no mosquito nets, no mosquito repellent, and we got bitten by mosquitoes, really a lot. And because we were being bitten by mosquitoes, it was hard to endure. But how I managed to deal with those hundreds of mosquitoes is learning how to relax my breath, relax my body. And then when you relax to the max, like I keep on asking you to do, you find out that you don't need to breathe so much. Your whole metabolism calms down. And then the mosquitoes would leave me alone. After the meditation, I could look at my hands, my arms, and my any other part of my exposed flesh, and there was no mosquito bites. Whereas the other monks would get those mosquito bites. I really thought that the meditation was some superpower to protect me. It wasn't. It was just nature. Mosquitoes are attracted to carbon dioxide coming out from the pores of the skin. The higher the metabolism, the more the mosquitoes know you're there. So when you worry about the mosquitoes, you're really telling the mosquitoes, here I am, come and get dinner. But when you relax to the max and your metabolism goes down, mosquitoes can't find you. You disappear. So anyway, I learned very quickly just how to relax my breath just by relaxing everything else, and the breath was not needed as much. On those occasions, you are mindful of the body. Now, the next thing it says here, having restrained the 5 hindrances. For those of you who have done your study, that's Vinaya, Loke, abhijjhā, Domanassa. Usually translated in English, if ever you read the English, I don't know what the Cantonese translation is, but in English they said, having restrained grief and covetousness for the world. When I first read that, that made no sense to me. Grief and covetousness for the world? And anyway, when I started learning Pali myself and looking through the suttas, reading the suttas and the Vinaya in Pali, I was quite stunned. The word Loke abhijjhā occurred many, many, many times in the suttas, not in the context of satipaṭṭhāna, in a totally different context. The 5 hindrances. Loke abhijjhā was used especially in the Aṅguttara Nikāya as an alternative for kāmacchanda, the first of the 5 hindrances. And that really sort of stunned me. That's what it means. And the other word in the Satipaṭṭhāna, the grief for the world, that was called Domanassa. It literally means a bad mind. But it's used in the suttas, in 2 suttas, as a synonym for the second hindrance. And so what these meant in the Satipaṭṭhāna, and also here, as restraining the first 2 of the 5 hindrances. And then I looked this up in the commentary to both Satipaṭṭhāna suttas. Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, that was in the Digha Nikāya, and the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta in the Majjhima Nikāya. In both those commentaries, it says, Loke abhijjhā means the first hindrance, Domanassa means the second hindrance. When you have two of a regular group, all the other members of that group are also to be considered as included. In other words, that really did mean the 5 hindrances. And the vinaya means having restrained, having lessened the power of the 5 hindrances. And that is the job of the previous factor of the Eightfold Path, samavayama, to restrain the power of the hindrances through sense restraint. So this is something which I say, which you may not have heard before, especially those of you who've been to many retreats. And this is authoritative. That before you even start the 5 hindrances, before you even start the 4 satipaṭṭhānas, any one of them, you have to restrain the 5 hindrances first of all. Not obliterate them, but make them weak so you can be mindful. Not ordinary mindfulness, but what I keep on calling powerful mindfulness. Not superpower mindfulness yet, but the mindfulness which you can see things like the in-breath, the out-breath, the hold of the breath, and the breath calming down. You can actually experience that. It's one of the reasons why when many people start ānā-Pain-nasati, the mindfulness of the breath, they can't really do it. If they try it, they just get more tense because they have to strive so much. It's not automatic. They don't do the preparation before they start watching the breath. And that's one of the reasons why in all the meditation I've taught so far, in this retreat and other retreats, I spend a huge amount of time in preparation, getting the body comfortable, doing like a body sweep so you can actually get the body comfortable. This is called ānā-Pain-nasati, mindfulness of the breath. It's very different than what many people do, which is called ānā-Pain-nasati, mindfulness of pain. That has nothing to do with this path. So, please excuse me telling silly jokes, but I can't really help it. You know why I tell silly jokes? Because my father used to say silly jokes. It's in my blood. He was born in Liverpool, and that's what people in Liverpool are like. You know, once, this is totally off context, but once he came home and he said, oh, terrible news. One of his friends had a motorbike accident and had to go to hospital, and they had to amputate one of his legs. And he said, but, by mistake, they were in a rush. By the time they got him into surgery, they amputated the wrong leg. So they had to get him straight back into the surgery and amputate the injured leg. It was unviable. So he lost both his legs. And as soon as he could, he recovered, he hired a lawyer to sue the hospital. But he lost his case. He didn't have a leg to stand on. It's a sick joke, I agree. But that's the joke my father told me, so please excuse me. It's just, was a good father or a bad father? I don't know. I call him a good father. So, oh no, I've done it again. Oh, that's good. Hey, get out of here. Okay, that's good enough. So, here we go. So the next part of Ānā-Pain-nasati. Now this is one of the interesting 4 stages. After you've done the aware of the long breath, the short breath, the hold of the breath, and calm the breath down, what happens next? When you learn to experience joy, piti, as you breathe in and out, when you learn to experience pleasure as you breathe in and out, when you learn to experience the mental formation, this is kāya-saṅkhāra, learn to experience the cittasaṅkhāra, the mental formation of piti sukha as you breathe in and out. And when you calm this mental formation of piti sukha as you breathe in and out, on these occasions you are mindful of vedanā. Now, vedanā, many people in English translate it as feeling. That is just too confusing. It's just bare experience. And that is a legitimate, good translation. Energized and fully aware of the purpose and mindful. Now, this is the first time in the Ānā-Pain-nasati Sutta you come across the experience part of the breath. You experience joy with the breath, sukha, pleasure with the breath, and learn to experience the whole of the cittasaṅkhāra of piti sukha. And that's important. Cittasaṅkhāra, that means this joy and happiness is not in the physical breath, it's in the way the mind experiences the breath. It's formed by your mind. And this is natural. That's why I think I already said when you come out of a meditation, you look at the carpet, and the carpet looks absolutely beautiful. That beauty is not in the carpet. It's in the mind, and it's how you see that carpet. In other words, the beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is very much in the mind of the beholder. And that's an important thing to know, is how you look at something. It's not in the thing itself. That is why you can look at all of the people in this room, and I can see just amazing meditators, beautiful people. And some of you think, oh, Ajahn Brahm is just saying this to get around us. No, it's in the mind. Freddie, I'm looking straight at you. I've known you for such a long time. You know, you're a really nice person. It's great to have you as a friend. Thank you. Am I mad? Not at all. What I'm doing is I am using the mind to see each one of you. I've known many of you for a long time, some of you for a short time. Look at the beautiful nun in front of me. I don't know you well, but I've seen you a few times before, and it's wonderful. Have a nun here, and yourself as well. Each one of you, you see the beauty in people. It's not in you. It's in the mind who looks at you. This is what it's saying here. This joy and pleasure when you are breathing is a cittasaṅkhāra. It's not in the breath. It's in the way you look at the breath from the mind. And this is supposed to happen. This is part of the way we do breath meditation. After a while, your breath becomes, oh, it's delightful. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's a lot of piti sukha, not just ordinary piti sukha. Oh, just a breath going in, as Ajahn Ganha used to say. Just breathe in, sabai. What was it? Halan? Okay. Yes, okay. You know what I'm trying to say. Beautiful, delightful. Oh, this is nice. And many people think you're a mad monk saying things like that. Breath, what's beautiful about that? When you look at it with a peaceful, strong mind, it's gorgeous. And you experience the two of them together, and then you learn how to calm this. What does it mean by being calm? Does it mean the piti sukha level is lessened? No. It's never lessened. It gets more intense, but more even. It's not coming and going. It just is a beautiful level and more deep. What are you watching in those 4 stages? Are you watching the breath? Yes, but it's not watching the breath as a physical feeling anymore. This is not the body's satipaṭṭhāna. This is the experience of Vedana's satipaṭṭhāna. You are seeing or experience how the mind experiences the breath, not how the body experiences the breath. You're experiencing the breath through a different sense door. It's not a feeling anymore. It's not a physical sense. It's not an object of the body feeling sense. It's of the mind feeling sense. This is how the mind experiences the breath. You can see things and you can know things. You can taste something but know that taste. You can touch something and then you know that taste, that touch. You're moving from one sense space to another sense space. This is how the mind experiences the breath. And for being mindful of the pleasure associated with this stage of breath meditation is being mindful of experience, vedanā. That is why on that occasion the meditator abides mindful of experience, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose, and mindful. And I love it when people get to this stage of the meditation. You're enjoying the meditation. It literally is fun and a joyful thing to do. You're having a good time. Otherwise, why do people come to meditation retreats? And if you're having a miserable time, you should ask for your money back. Honestly. But anyway, the next 4 steps of Ānāpānasati. When you learn how to experience the citta, as you breathe in and out, in brackets I've got nimitta. I haven't really said or explained in detail this light which you see. What actually are you seeing? This is your 6th sense, the mind. The other 5 senses have settled down and basically either disappeared totally or are not strong enough to disturb you. You experience this, you got your eyes closed, the sense of sight is turned off, the nose is not smelling anything, you're not tasting anything, and your body, once the breath has disappeared, you can't feel the body. And even if you can hear anything, it's like that sound is 100 miles away. I mention this, the sound last of all, because that's the last thing which turns off when you are calming the senses. So much so that that's the way. Look, when you go to sleep at night, what wakes you up in the morning? Ding, 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 ding. The sound penetrates even sleep. That's why at the end of meditation, why does sort of most meditations end with gong? Because that can penetrate deep. So, and I don't like doing that. I don't want to penetrate any deep states of meditation you have. I want you to enjoy them to the max, no matter what happens. So, but anyway, that the nimitta is how you experience this thing we call the mind. Many of you would experience it as a light. It is not a light. It's how we interpret it. And the reason is that human beings are mostly visual beings. The sense of sight is our major way of knowing things. That is why in a couple of days' time, when I have to leave Hong Kong and go to the airport and go through immigration control, they will not listen to my voice. They will not, smell me. Is that really Ajahn Brahm? They'll look at the photograph of me on my passport. That is how we recognize people, by sight. That's the major sense base we rely upon as human beings. And that is why that this mind, we interpret it as a light. And I mention this because sometimes that nimitta, that light, can be incredibly bright. And it happened to me, and it's happened to many of my followers, that sometimes you can experience a light in the mind, you're having a wonderful time, but sometimes you experience it as so incredibly bright, you think you're going to go blind. It's like looking at the sun, but the sun in 10 times, 100 times the power of the sun. I said, I can't look at this any longer, I won't be able to see anymore. But you're not seeing it with your eyes. Those eyes are resting. You're seeing it with your mind. It's the way the mind interprets it. So please understand that. It doesn't matter how bright that nimitta is, it's not going to blind you. No matter how enjoyable it is. And I'm mentioning this is highly enjoyable. Even to the point, and it again happened to me, it's happened to others as well. Sometimes, this is no exaggeration, sometimes you think, oh my goodness, I can't stand so much pleasure. I'm going to explode. I'm being absolutely honest with you. That's how it feels. But one thing I discovered, an insight I share with you, you can always take more. And that doesn't make any sense to most of you, but when you get to those stages, you'll discover, wow, this really is amazing stuff. So anyway, when you learn to settle the nimitta, still the citta, as you breathe in and out, when you, oh, I missed one, sorry. When you learn to brighten the nimitta, bring joy to the nimitta. First is experiencing the nimitta. The next one is, what's it called? Sampajānaṃ nimitta. No, that's not it. Sampasadanaṃ cittaṃ. Literally bring joy to the nimitta, brighten it up, give it more energy. Because sometimes if you see a nimitta, sometimes there's many types of nimittas you might see. And some of them are I call like sheet nimittas, throughout the whole of the mind. And not like a circle or not a spot, but all over the mind. But sometimes it's quite dull. It hasn't got the brilliance to it. So you learn how to sharpen it up, how to brighten it up. It doesn't say here how to do that, so I'll give you the tricks. How you do that, well, I'm going to go back a little bit. One of my attendants who used to look after me when I was in Malaysia, when I started talking about this to him, he wanted an interview, emergency interview. So what's wrong? I said, I saw nimittas. They're all dirty and smudged. And some parts were bright, other parts were really dirty. I said, well, what have you been doing? Have you been keeping your precepts? He said, no, that's the trouble. And honestly, if you haven't been a good person, you've been a human being, you make mistakes like most other people do, then when you see that nimitta sometimes for the first time, it's all smudged, like it's been a nice white cloth which has been dragged along the floor. And he got very upset about that. He said, look, I'm trying my best, but I'm a human being. I make mistakes. And I told him the trick, how to take a dirty smudge nimitta and turn it into something beautiful. What you do was when you, best thing is to not to have any smudges to begin with, but let's be realistic, you all have. Because what you do, you see that nimitta, whatever it is, and you focus on the beautiful parts of it. You don't focus on the faults. For those of you who know my story of the 2 bad bricks in the wall, you don't focus on the 2 bad bricks, you focus on the 998 good bricks. Those 998 good bricks, the 2 really beautiful, perfect bricks. You focus on that, on this nimitta. What happens is when you focus on the most beautiful part of the nimitta, it's like that expands. And then you focus on the most beautiful part of the most beautiful part. And then the most beautiful part of the most beautiful part of the most beautiful part. You keep on doing that. And then that nimitta just really brightens up and blows your mind. That's how you do it. On one occasion, I remember just seeing a nimitta, quite a nice scene, a complicated nimitta. It was like a scene of rolling hills, a river in the valley, and nice trees. It had too much detail, even though it was pleasant to watch. So I know how to deal with this. I was looking at that nimitta, like that lovely country scene, and I noticed on the tip of one of the leaves on one of the trees, there was a sparkle, like a dewdrop sparkling in the sunshine. And my mind just went right to that. And that sparkle, that dewdrop expanded and filled my mind. And that became a gorgeous nimitta, a beautiful light, circular that was, in my mind. And from there, you can take that into the most beautiful states of mind. So that's what we do. We learn how to brighten that nimitta up. Take whatever you've got, look at the best part of it, zoom in on it, and it becomes a very powerful nimitta. And the other thing, when you learn how to settle the nimitta, to still it, samādahaṃ cittaṃ. Samadhi does not mean to concentrate, it means to keep it still. So what you're actually doing there, often that nimitta will move around, expand, contract, move over here, move over there. It's not stable enough. You know that I had that problem for many months. And now how I solved that problem was, again, through insight. One morning, I was wondering, what am I going to do to solve this problem? And like any man, I had to have a shave that morning, shave my beard. And as I was shaving, I noticed in the mirror, which I was looking in, so I could shave without cutting myself. As I was shaving, I noticed the image in the mirror was moving. And so I decided to hold the mirror still. Even though I held the mirror still, the image was still moving. And I realized because I was moving. So I stood perfectly still. Then the image in the mirror was still. And that little experience, I understood, answered my question of how to keep the nimitta still. The one who was watching had to be still. Your mindfulness had to be still. Forget about trying to hold the object still. Have an idea of the one who's watching this and keeping that still. Then nimitta got totally still. It's brilliant. So once you have this nimitta being still and being very bright, the energy really builds up. And then you learn to enter jhana, liberate the citta. This is called citta vimocchaṃ, cittaṃ. And if you know Pali, you know that word vimoccha, vimocchaṃ is the verb associated with the noun vimoccha, always refers to the mind in jhanas. That's why it's great to read Pali yourself, and you keep reading it, sutra after sutra, in the Vinaya too. And it's quite clear what those words mean. This means entering the jhana, that's the 12th stage of Ānāpānasati. And here we say, on those occasions you are mindful of the citta. That's why it counts as a third satipaṭṭhāna. Having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. I do not say there is development of mindfulness of breathing for one who is dull, who is not fully aware, which means reaching a jhana with the hindrances gone. That is why on that occasion a meditator abides mindful of the mind, of the citta, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. the next 4 stages of ānā-Pain-nasati. When you learn to explore, I don't say contemplate, I said explore, because contemplate, you usually have background information which you're trying to affirm or deny. And this is not doing anything like that. This is exploring, seeing what else is in there. When you learn to explore things fading, when you learn to explore impermanence in breath meditation, anicca, when you learn to explore things fading away in breath meditation, when you learn to explore things ceasing in breath meditation, when you learn to explore relinquishing things in breath meditation, on these occasions you are mindful of mind objects, the Dhamma, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. Having seen with wisdom the impermanence, fading away, cessation and relinquishment of the 5 hindrances, you are mindful with equanimity. That is why on that occasions you are mindful of mind objects, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful. That is how mindfulness of breathing, developed and cultivated, complete the 4 focuses of mindfulness. When you learn how to explore these things, do you all know what anicca means? Impermanence? A lot of times we think we do, but we don't. Again, learning Pali, especially the monks and nuns Vinaya, you came across the opposite of anicca, nicca, as a type of food. They call it nicca meals for monks. And nicca food, it's nicca butter, not butter and butter, but butter is a word for the monk's meal. Nicca butter is a meal which is offered on regular occasions. Like someone comes to your monastery once a week on Tuesdays, and they always come on Tuesdays. Honestly, we've had people come to Bodhinyana Monastery every Tuesday for years. When they turn up, you know it's Tuesday. They're that regular. That is nicca food. Regular. Anicca is the opposite. Something which is regular, always been there, has now gone. To explain that further, I gave this simile earlier to someone in interviews, the simile of the tadpole and the frog. Once there was a little tadpole, and she was born in a pond in a lake next to a monastery. A little tadpole, she was really smart. She went to tadpole school in the lake, first primary school and then high school. She was so smart that she got a place in Tadpole University. And she not only graduated in chemistry, specializing in the nature of water, because this pond was in a monastery, she could also overhear the monks discussing the abhijjhā about water, what water was. So she became an expert in water. So she thought. But how can a tadpole know what water is? Can know the nature of water as much as a fish knows what water is. You're born in it, lived your whole life in it. You can learn what other people say about it. You have no experience of it. It's always been there. But the difference between a tadpole and a fish is that one day, little tadpole grows appendages on its body. Little legs come out from the bottom. Little arms come up from the middle. Little tadpole is transforming into a frog. And one day, Mrs. Frog, or Miss Frog, whatever you call it, she doesn't really know what she's doing, but she jumps out of the lake. And once she's out of the lake, imagine what that must be like for someone who's always been in the lake. something which has always been there, which was anicca, is now disappeared. Water. No little frog can understand what water really means. That strange stuff which has always been there ever since she was born has now vanished. That's anicca. Something always there has gone. Why do I mention that in Ānāpānasati? Because in Ānāpānasati, in each of these different stages, there are things disappearing. In the first stage of meditation, you're watching the long breath, the short breath, calming the breath. You find that after that, the breath disappears. Many of you ask me, what happens? I'm meditating and I can't find the breath. You are aware of something. What are you aware of? Something has gone, but there's still something there. You're still aware. What is the object of your awareness? If you do this Ānāpānasati properly, when the breath disappears, you're aware of joy, piti and sukha. The breath has gone, but the piti sukha is still there. Or rather, the physical feeling of the breath is gone. Now you're experiencing in a totally different way through the sense door of the mind. And it's delightful. And then after a while, that even delight calms down and you can't even feel your body. The breath is totally gone now. You're not aware of it. You're experiencing this nimitta, the citta, the mind. Still, many people have no idea what this mind is. Even, as I mentioned the other day, my best friend, or one of my best friends, Bernard, very close collaborator with Stephen Hawkins. And I used to ask him, does Stephen Hawkins, why doesn't he's smart enough, agree to the existence of a mind? And he says, no, for some reason, he just can't see that. With one of his close collaborators, Bernard, he's a Buddhist. He understands the nature of the mind. It's necessary for quantum theory to work, to collapse the Schrödinger equation. Without an observer, without a knower, without a mind, we can't have reality. But anyway, that over here you get to know the mind. You're experiencing it for a long time. With that, exploring the nature of the mind, because you have it right in front of you. This is where you get to understand that the body has vanished and now the mind is there. That's why I said, I think last night, once the body has vanished, that's exactly what happens when you die. And the mind is left. You experience that so many times. You have no doubt about rebirth, that the death of the body is not the end of everything. You've experienced the mind apart from the five senses. So you understand, explore impermanence, things always there, now not there. You learn to explore things fading away. They do fade away. Are you concerned about being a female or a male? Being old, being young? Being this race or that race? I don't know if you know that I am an Asian. I'm an Asian monk. Did you know that? A Caucasian. Sorry. It's my father's conditioning. So things fading away, things ceasing. It's amazing when you get into these deep meditations. Many, many things drop away. your body and your five senses, it's only when they drop away, like the water drops away from the frog, you can understand what water is. When your body fades away, you can understand what your body is. When the senses fade away, you can understand what that is. And then go even deeper when your mind fades. Oh, no, let's not go to the mind yet. When your will, your choice fades away. Do you know what the will is? What choice is? Why you decide to do some things and not others? Do you decide that? In the deep meditations, the will vanishes. It's like the frog always being in this lake of will. You don't always exercise your will, but it's always there for you to exercise if you want. But in these deep meditations, you can't do anything. That little button to press called your choice, your will, is no longer there. Will has vanished. And later on, consciousnesses start to vanish. You explore that, you're perfectly safe. You're having the time of your lives. But these things vanish automatically. And it's not scary at all. It's beautiful, it's liberating. You're free of having choice. See, free from having it. You know, because I've been a monk for so many years, 48 years, I remember when I could go out to buy something from a supermarket, it was so easy. If I wanted to buy some muesli, you only had one. Obviously, sometimes you didn't have any muesli. You just had to get some rolled oats and make it yourself. They didn't sell it. But now, sometimes you've gone to blessed supermarkets, you see what's on sale there. There's so many different types of muesli you can buy. There's free trade muesli. There is I forget, vegan muesli, vegetarian muesli, muesli with this and muesli with that. Actually, I don't know because I've never been there for years, but I think you understand what I mean. It must be so difficult to shop because there's so many choices these days. Even TV. How many channels are there on a TV these days? Actually, people don't have channels, do they? Have, was it Netflix or something? You don't just have Netflix. You have, what else do you have to get movies? I don't know, but YouTube, Disney Channel, I don't know. But it must be so confusing for you. When I grew up, we only had two channels, BBC, ITV. And we used to fight over which one we'd watch. But nevertheless, only a choice of two. Does more choice give you more freedom or more confusion? So imagine when choice totally vanishes for a small period of time. You feel so incredibly free. The happiness of the second jhana is basically because choice is gone for a while. The will has vanished. Comes back again afterwards. You're perfectly happy, perfectly at peace, having a wonderful time of your lives, and you're perfectly frozen there. Diamond Samadhi. That's the name I give it, simply because it can't be moved. You come out of it when the karmic causes vanish. So anyway, there I go again, telling too many jokes in my own commentary rather than what the actual Buddha said. Nevertheless, I say that in other places he would agree with that. But anyway, that's how mindfulness of the breathing developed and cultivated completes the four focuses of mindfulness, the satipaṭṭhāna. So what are actually we doing here? Are we doing vipassana or are we doing samatha? We're doing the breath meditation. Is the breath meditation samatha or vipassana? Exactly. Of course, it's both. Sometimes people say, oh no, breath meditation is samatha, satipaṭṭhāna is vipassana. And here the Buddha is saying, you do the ānā-Pain-nasati and it completes the satipaṭṭhāna. They are the same. So if you want to tell people, and they are vipassaninis, as somebody used to call them, then please tell them you've been doing a vipassana retreat with Ajahn Brahm. And you are not lying. There's no difference there at all. They always go together. So again, let's see 1 hour of Sutta with Ajahn Brahm's commentary. Any questions on that so far? Any complaints? It's okay to complain. It's not disrespectful. This is one of the things which I have noticed in Chinese culture. You're not supposed to criticize the teacher. That's considered to be disrespectful. But please remember, I'm a Kwai Lo teacher. So you can question and complain. Thank you. Yes? Relax to the max. This is how you relax to the max. Yes. So when you start it, in each one of these, the satipaṭṭhāna, it says, you watch the in-breath, the long in-breath, the short in-breath, the whole of the breath, and you learn how to calm the breath. You're relaxing the breath. And when you experience the piti sukha, you experience the piti sukha, and you learn how to relax the piti sukha, the bliss. The more you relax to the max, the more joy and happiness you feel. You are not going dull and going to sleep. This is one of the comments by the Buddha. I haven't said it here, but where are you the most mindful? In what state of mind does mindfulness reach its peak? And the Buddha said, the fourth jhana. That's where mindfulness is the most pure and strong. Upekkha-sati-parisuddhi sati. That is the peak of mindfulness. You can't be more mindful than the experience in the fourth jhana. Okay, so when you experience that and you have a different perception, you can come and argue with me. You got a question? Yeah.
The transition between the 4 stages, they are gradual. You don't go from one to the other quickly. Like you're aware of the breath in the body first.
Yeah.
And then it goes to
The feeling of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is very gradual.
Very gradual. And it happens naturally. You don't have to think, oh, I've done stage 3 now I have to go to stage 4 or stage 5. It's similar to, again, when you're flying from one destination to another in this world. You don't sort of, suddenly you're in sort of Hong Kong and then next you're in sort of Indonesian territory or next you're in Vietnam or something. Those are just additions to the nature of the world. You just fly smoothly through these countries. Despite all of these different stages, the one merges into the other. And one is a deepening of the peace and stillness. Just like, it's hard to explain these things, but once I explained that's just something like the 4 jhanas. You can imagine that four rooms in a house, but they're all like circular rooms. So the 4th jhana is this circular room in the middle. The 3rd jhana surrounds it. The 2nd jhana surrounds that. The 1st jhana surrounds that. And there's, beforehand, that's another room. So to get to the next room, you have to go into the 1st jhana before you can get to the 2nd jhana. In the middle of the 2nd jhana, you find the 3rd jhana. In the middle of the 3rd jhana, you find the 4th. So these are all inside each other. And a lovely way of describing that is the old 1,000-petal lotus simile. To get to the next layer of petals are right inside the layer of petals which are open right now. Just go deeper and deeper in. As layer after layer opens up and you go deeper inside. Okay, there's one last question over here, yeah?
Just now you mentioned about the beauty not inside the body, but which that one is in the mind you see. Still don't understand.
Yes, the nature of beauty is in the mind. In other words, if the mind is very pure and still, and that's where the beauty comes from. So once you become a good meditator, you have deep experiences of meditation, everything you experience is beautiful. So you may have an old grandma who's aged in years, and then you go and look at her after a retreat. Grandma, have you been to the spa? You look so beautiful. And you mean it. You can see beauty in places other people just cannot see. So the source of that beauty is in... Sorry?
Brahma itself also beauty. It's not just outer.
No, it's the way you look at her. Other people look at her and think she's old and worn out and ragged. So it's how the mind experiences the world. Is a baked bean delicious? A baked bean from a can? It is if you come out of meditation and eat one. I don't like kimchi, as you've told everybody, Gerald. But if I had a deep meditation, you gave me some kimchi. Wow, I've been missing out so long in my life. Because everything would taste gorgeous and delicious. Okay, so if there are any more questions, please, you can write them on the piece of paper and I'll try and answer them this evening. As for this moment, it's now just gone past 3:30, so there is time for more interviews. And after the interviews are complete, then we can all have... The interviews go to 5 o'clock or 5:30, the interviews. No, it must be 5 o'clock or 5. It doesn't matter, 5:30. And then we can have a rest, light refreshments, personal time meditation until 7 o'clock, and 7 to 8:30 we'll have the Q&A time. Thank you all for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. And just a little thing, Freddie. What I was reading, was it the same which was on there? It was. Good. Because I got 2 versions of the word of the Buddha. I didn't know if you picked the right one. It was. You did. Well done. 50-50 chance, and you did it.